What if I told you that the man credited with inventing the telephone may not have been the first person to create it? What if one of history's greatest inventors was involved in a race against time, patent battles, secret experiments, and controversies that still spark debate today? And what if his most groundbreaking work had nothing to do with the telephone at all? Today on Next Level Pro, we're uncovering the untold story of Alexander Graham Bell, a genius whose life was far more mysterious, ambitious, and controversial than most people realize. When people hear the name Alexander Graham Bell, they immediately think of one invention: the telephone. His famous words, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you," changed human communication forever. But Bell's life was much more than a single invention. Behind the success was a determined scientist obsessed with sound, a fierce competitor fighting rivals, and an inventor who spent decades exploring technologies that were far ahead of their time. This is the story textbooks rarely tell. A child surrounded by sound, Alexander Graham Bell was born on March 3rd, 1847, in Edinburgh, Scotland. From the very beginning, sound shaped his life. His father, Alexander Melville Bell, was a renowned expert in speech and elocution. His grandfather had also devoted his life to studying human speech. In the Bell household, conversations about language, pronunciation, and communication were part of everyday life. But there was another powerful influence. Bell's mother, Eliza Grace Bell, gradually lost her hearing. Watching his mother struggle to hear transformed young Bell's perspective. Instead of simply speaking loudly, he would communicate by speaking close to her forehead, helping her feel the vibrations of his voice. Without realizing it, Bell was already beginning a lifelong mission, helping people connect through sound. The young inventor. Bell's curiosity appeared early. As a teenager, he constantly experimented with machines and inventions. One story tells of Bell and a friend creating a device that could separate wheat from husks more efficiently. The invention worked surprisingly well. Even at a young age, Bell demonstrated an unusual ability. He could identify problems and imagine solutions others never considered. But tragedy soon struck. Bell's two brothers died from tuberculosis. Concerned about Alexander's health, the Bell family left Scotland and eventually settled in Canada. The move would change Bell's future forever. The obsession with the human voice. After moving to North America, Bell became deeply involved in teaching deaf students. He believed communication was one of humanity's most valuable abilities. One of his most famous students was a young deaf woman named Mabel Hubbard. Bell eventually fell in love with her. Years later, she became his wife and one of his strongest supporters. While teaching, Bell became fascinated by a question. Could sound itself travel through wires? At the time, the telegraph dominated long-distance communication. Messages could be sent electrically, but only encoded signals. Bell dreamed of something revolutionary. Instead of sending dots and dashes, what if people could send actual voices? Many experts thought it was impossible. Bell refused to believe them. The race to invent the telephone. By the 1870s, Bell was working tirelessly on his experiments. Money was scarce, success was uncertain, and competition was fierce. Unknown to Bell, other inventors were chasing the same dream. One of the biggest rivals was inventor Elisha Gray. Both men were trying to solve the same problem. How could electrical signals carry the complexity of the human voice? Then came one of the most controversial days in technology history. February 14, 1876, Bell's lawyers submitted a patent application for the telephone. Remarkably, Elisha Gray filed similar documents on the very same day. The timing was so close that historians still debate exactly what happened. Did Bell independently reach the breakthrough first? Did Gray deserve more credit? The controversy remains unresolved. What is certain is that Bell received the patent, and history would never be the same. The first phone call. A few weeks later, Bell achieved the moment that changed the world. While working with his assistant, Thomas Watson, Bell accidentally spilled acid during an experiment. Instinctively, he spoke into the device. "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." To Bell's amazement, Watson heard the words through the wire. Not coded signals, not clicks, not beeps, a real human voice. For the first time in history, speech had traveled electrically. The age of telecommunications had begun. The world laughs at Bell. Surprisingly, many people weren't impressed. When Bell demonstrated the telephone publicly, critics dismissed it as a novelty. Some thought it was little more than a scientific toy. Others believed nobody would ever need such a device. After all, the telegraph already existed. Why would anyone want to hear someone's voice from miles away? Today, that idea sounds ridiculous. But in the late 1800s, many influential people failed to understand Bell's vision. Fortunately, Bell kept pushing forward. And soon, the world caught up. The patent wars. As the telephone became more valuable, legal battles exploded. Competitors challenged Bell's patent repeatedly. Over the years, Bell and his company faced hundreds of lawsuits. Some inventors claimed Bell had stolen ideas. Others argued that they had invented the technology first. The stakes were enormous. Whoever controlled the patent could control a future worth billions. Bell's legal team successfully defended the patent again and again. The victories helped establish what eventually became one of the most powerful telecommunications empires in history. But the controversy never completely disappeared. Even today, some historians continue debating who truly deserves credit for inventing the telephone. The inventions most people never heard about. Here's something many people don't know. Bell eventually became bored with the telephone. Yes, the man famous for inventing the telephone lost interest in it. Instead, he focused on new ideas. And some were astonishing. One of Bell's most fascinating inventions was the photophone. The device transmitted sound using beams of light instead of wires. Think about that for a moment. In the 1880s, Bell was experimenting with wireless communication using light. More than a century later, modern fiber optic systems would rely on similar principles. Bell considered the photophone one of his greatest achievements, yet most people have never heard of it. Bell's flying machines. Bell also became obsessed with aviation. Long before commercial air travel existed, Bell experimented with giant kites and flying machines. He founded research groups dedicated to understanding flight. His team tested innovative aircraft designs and aerodynamic concepts. Some of these experiments helped influence the early development of aviation technology. Bell believed humanity's future belonged in the skies, and he wanted to help make that future possible. The speedboat revolution. As if telephones and aviation weren't enough, Bell turned his attention to water. He began experimenting with hydrofoils. Hydrofoils are boats equipped with wing-like structures beneath the water. As speed increases, the boat lifts above the surface, reducing drag dramatically. Bell's hydrofoil designs achieved record-breaking speeds. In fact, one of his hydrofoil boats set a world marine speed record in 1919. Even in his later years, Bell continued pushing technological boundaries. Retirement simply wasn't in his nature. The controversial side of Bell. Not every chapter of Bell's story is celebrated. Some of his views remain controversial. Bell strongly supported oral education for deaf individuals, encouraging speech and lip reading instead of sign language. Many members of the deaf community disagreed with his approach. Critics argued that Bell underestimated the importance of sign language and deaf culture. His involvement with certain ideas connected to eugenics has also drawn criticism from modern historians. These aspects of his legacy remind us that even brilliant innovators can hold beliefs that later generations question. History is rarely simple. And Bell was no exception. The final years. In his final years, Bell remained active, curious, and inventive. He continued exploring new technologies while living in Nova Scotia, Canada. Even after transforming global communication, Bell never stopped asking questions, never stopped experimenting, never stopped imagining what might come next. Then, on August 2nd, 1922, Alexander Graham Bell passed away at the age of 75. But what happened after his death was extraordinary. Across the United States and Canada, telephone services were briefly silenced in his honor. Millions of telephones fell quiet, a fitting tribute to the man whose invention had connected the world. The untold legacy. Today, billions of people communicate instantly across continents. Smartphones connect families, businesses, and entire societies. Video calls allow face-to-face conversations from opposite sides of the planet. All of this traces part of its history back to Bell's vision. But his true legacy extends beyond the telephone. Bell showed the power of relentless curiosity. He refused to accept limitations. When experts said something couldn't be done, he experimented until he proved otherwise. Whether working on communication, aviation, or transportation, Bell constantly looked toward the future. And that's what made him extraordinary. Utero. So, was Alexander Graham Bell the sole inventor of the telephone? The debate continues. But one thing is certain. He helped launch a communication revolution that transformed human civilization forever. His story is not just about invention. It's about ambition, controversy, competition, and the relentless pursuit of impossible ideas. And perhaps that's the real untold story of Alexander Graham Bell. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Next Level Pro, because the next incredible mystery of history is only one video away. Thanks for watching,